this evening by Chief Strong of the Everett Police Department, Mayor Carlos Maria of Everett, Detective Lieutenant William Donahue from the State Police assigned to our office, as well as our Chief of Homicide Assistant District Attorney Adrian Lynch. I'm going to walk through first a series of events, some of which I know you already know. I'll then talk to you a little bit about the charges at this point, as well as our plans going forward, and then I'll take a few questions, all right? The information we have right now indicates that this series of events began around 12:45 this afternoon. Medford Police Department received a phone call relative to an individual who was at a Sunoco station and was acting erratically. That person was later identified as Admilson Vizcaino of Everett. That individual left the gas station in a black Chevy SUV before the police arrived in response to that call that had been made. Medford Police Department put out what's called a BOLO, be on the lookout for that particular Chevrolet. At about 1 o'clock, Stoneham Police Department attempted to pull that car over and were unsuccessful in being able to stop the car. An hour later, about 2 o'clock, that car was at a 7-Eleven in Billerica, and there was a report that a shoplifting had taken place at the 7-Eleven, that same car. At about 3:15, Malden Police received a phone call from a family member of Mr. Vizcaino indicating that he was then in Malden. As the officers arrived at that location, Mr. Vizcaino was leaving again in that black SUV. Malden police began to follow that car, but eventually lost track of the car when it entered the city of Everett. And they had notified Everett that car was en route. Mr. Vizcaino then crashed that SUV on Broadway here in Everett, shortly above the intersection where we are now. He drove the car for a short distance until it became completely disabled. At that point, he was attempting to gain entry into some other cars that were in traffic. He was unsuccessful at getting himself into another car at that point. State police were responding, and at that point the car had come to a final rest. He tumbled from that car and was surrounded by the troopers that had arrived. Inside that vehicle, upon later examination, was a container of gasoline, which the suspect had been seen carrying on video at the 7-Eleven back in Billerica. Now, not having an operable vehicle, the suspect began approaching a number of vehicles that were leaving the driveway of the entrance that you see behind you. When he was unsuccessful in gaining access to any of those vehicles, he continued out onto the road, crossed on the other side of traffic, attempted to enter a number of vehicles. Along the way, a cigarette lighter was dropped into the road. Police officers were attempting to approach and de-escalate what was happening. Eventually, Mr. Vizcaino came up to a dump truck, a Republic dump truck, trash truck that had been stopped at the light immediately to my left. As he came up to that, there was both a passenger and a driver inside. The passenger was able to get himself out of the truck. Mr. Vizcaino opened the door after a struggle with the driver. He got himself into the driver's seat, was attempting to climb across the driver of that car. At that point, both state police and an Everett police officer had approached that door. They were attempting to get the driver out of the truck. Shots were fired at that point. Several shots were fired. And the driver was safely extracted from the truck. Mr. Vizcaino then got in and began operating that vehicle, taking off along Broadway, driving for about a half mile, causing a variety of instances of property damage along the way, striking light poles, fire hydrants, and other things, before finally approaching the bridge, going up onto the sidewalk. One of the state troopers had attempted to use stop sticks attempting to flat the tires of the truck as it was fleeing from this area. At some point, the truck ultimately was disabled and came to rest on the top of the bridge. Mr. Viscano was again approached by the troopers and the Everett officers and eventually taken from the truck. He was transported to a nearby hospital where he remains in critical condition. He is presently to be charged with 4 counts of attempted armed carjacking, 2 counts of armed carjacking, armed assault with intent to rob, and various motor vehicle charges, including leaving the scene of property damage. He'll be arraigned at a later date, obviously dependent on his health situation. Those are essentially the facts as we know them at this point. We are fairly early in the investigation. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Strong to speak a little bit about this area, about the officer, and about the impact of what happened today. And then I'll be happy to take a few questions. Chief?
Thank you, everyone. Chief Paul Strong from the Everett Police Department. I first want to thank members of the Everett Police Department and troopers from the Massachusetts State Police for their calm, professional response to this chaotic scene today. Also, it is more likely than not that these officers and troopers saved many lives today during this event. The officer who discharged his firearm will be placed on administrative leave, which is standard as to our policy.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll take a few questions.
Did the suspect have a knife at one point, and
Yes.
was he attacking or charging at officers out
Yes,
here?
that's what leads to the assault with a dangerous weapon charges.
And was there an incident between the suspect and somebody on a moped out here as well?
There was an attempt by the suspect to take, while he was on the other side of this road, in trying to gain access to various cars, there was an attempt to take a moped from somebody who was driving that. And that was unsuccessful.
He was actually shot himself,
Yes.
and only one officer fired.
It's early in the investigation, but that's where we are right
And
now.
he was tased multiple times.
He was tased several times, yes, and the officers attempting to de-escalate.
You know if he was on a mission with his gasoline or what he was up to?
These are very concerning facts. We are looking at all of those possibilities. It's obviously a whole afternoon of behavior, and we're in the process of gathering information and doing lots of things.
You said critical condition. How many times was he shot?
We don't really have all that information yet. I'm sure by the time the arraignment we'll know better about that.
And we were hearing that the truck may have been leaking diesel from being shot. Was that a factor?
My understanding is that the vehicle had a leak when it came to rest. It appears at this point early on, most likely that was a result of some of the erratic driving and being up on the sidewalk, up on the bridge.
And was he shot?
I'm
Another
sorry?
witness said he had an axe, so you're thinking it was more
We don't have any information about it.
Did he hit anyone over here when he pulled up onto the sidewalk and things of that?
There is, as you can see, and I know you've all been here for a number of hours, this is a very busy area. Lots of vehicle traffic, lots of pedestrian traffic, lots of bikers, scooters, all of that. There was an individual on some type of a scooter who was in the vicinity when the trash truck was being operated. That individual was able to get away from his scooter. His scooter suffered some pretty serious damage.
And was he shot when he was in the driver's seat of the truck after the truck was disabled? Is that when police shot him?
No.
When
no,
was he shot?
No.
When was he
What
hit?
we know at this point is the officer discharged his weapon as Mr. Viscano was attempting to tear open the door of the trash truck.
So he was shot
that
before he
being
was
held.
even driving the truck.
And there is also, and we're continuing to look at that, there's a struggle that takes place in that door because the driver is in the seat. He is attempting to get him out and climbing across him, still in possession of the knife. And the officer was able to extract the driver from the truck. It's in that door path where the officer discharged his weapon.
So to be clear, he went in through the passenger side?
No, he went in through the driver's side. The passenger was able to open his own door and get himself out. The driver was not able to do that because despite the driver trying to hold the door, Mr. Viscano was able to get the door open. He then was coming in over the driver who was still in place in the truck. That truck was just sitting, stopped here at the red light.
So he's already shot as he's driving the truck. He's already
Yes.
shot.
That is our understanding at this point.
And to the chief's point, you know, a lot of lives were probably saved. We're in rush hour traffic. And was it the fact that there was a truck driver and that passenger, was that a factor? Because obviously the police officers didn't want more people to be hurt, so they wanted those people out of the car.
Well, to the chief's point, I think that we are very fortunate. Despite the fact that someone was hurt here, we are very fortunate, given the number of people in this situation, the multiple attempts to gain access to another car, the possession of the weapon, just the running about in the traffic. As you can see, even fairly late at night, there's a lot going on over here. So that is one piece. When he was attempting to get, the officers had already tried tasing him. There's a number of conversations that can be seen trying to de-escalate this, end the situation. When the individual approached the trash truck, and he is attempting to tear that door open, he's refusing commands to step away from the truck. The driver is essentially trapped in his seat. The passenger has been able to get out. The driver can't get out. And he is actually going into the truck where the driver's lodged.
Do you know how many people were injured? I know there were a number of people who were transported who were parked over here.
We don't have all that information yet.
Did he pull a knife or a gun on anybody in the earlier incidents up in Billerica or anywhere
We're
else?
still looking at all of that. Thank you all.